Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and on the line with us is our old friend Greg Palast. He is the investigative reporter and contributor to Rolling Stone magazine, author and filmmaker of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. His website, Greg Palast, Palast.com. You can tweet him at Greg_Palast. And Greg, welcome back to the program.
Glad to be with you again, Tom.
It's always great having you with us, Greg. So I was out of the country last week, and but every day I was checking the news on my phone. And here comes this story that Donald Trump has decided that he's going to create a commission to investigate voter fraud. And he's going to put Kris Kobach in charge of it. I'm sure you have something to say about this.
Yeah, I would laugh too, except I've been crying.
Yeah.
So now I'm laughing. Okay, Kris Kobach.
I was sitting with a bunch of Norwegians up in Tromsø, up in the Arctic Circle. And I tried to explain this to them, that in the United States, we have a political party that works to prevent people from voting. And they thought I was joking. Honest to God, I think to this day, by the end of the conversation, I don't think I had convinced them that I wasn't punking them. Back to you.
Yeah, well, I can imagine, because in the rest of the world, well, it depends where, but much of the world is beginning to learn that American democracy isn't quite a democracy yet. Kris Kobach is the Secretary of State of Kansas. He's also Trump's vote thief in chief. And as you know from he was actually the central bad guy in my film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, for Rolling Stone. I've been investigating him for Al Jazeera 3.5, 4 years. This guy is the guy who came up with the various schemes, whether you call it crosscheck, citizenship proof, SB 1070, I can give you a list, but he's the guy who's come up with the various technical, secretive, and vilely racist means of suppressing the vote. The New York Times says, oh, he supports voter ID. That's just the tip of the junkberg. This is the guy who created that list called crosscheck. Remember when Donald Trump says 3 million people, Trump said 3 million people have voted twice. He's referring to a list of 7 million names.
No, I think what he said was that there were 3 million illegal votes, and the implication was they were Mexicans who weren't citizens.
Right. Well, some were that, but he also said in another on one of his talks on Fox, he said that there are 3 million illegal people
dual voters
illegally registered in 2 states, so they twice.
Which, of course, is Kobach's thing.
Yeah, that's Kobach's thing. It's called crosscheck. And what he did was he literally, and this is important, he got 30 Republican secretaries of state. Those are the people in charge of voting in your state. He got the GOP secretaries of state to remove 1.1 million voters from the voter rolls. Take Michigan, where he had 500,000 people on his suspect list. They removed about 50,000. The Secretary of State's office says, oh, they were very aggressive in using Kris Kobach's list. I'll say aggressive. Donald Trump supposedly won Michigan by 10,700 votes. Well, if you remove 50,000 minority votes, accusing them of voting twice, yeah, that's how Trump won the state of Michigan. Ohio, North Carolina, Arizona, these important swing states, the voter rolls were gutted, were swept clean of people with names like Jose Rodriguez, Maria Hernandez, David Kim, James Brown. If 2 people were named, if there's a guy named, in fact, not if, there was a guy in Atlanta named James Brown. Believe it or not, there's a guy in Motown, Detroit named James Brown. Both were on the hit list, subject to having their votes removed. This is just the beginning of what Kobach is about to do now as the official inquisitor for Trump's voting commission. And you have to understand, it's not just to prove in their Fox way that Trump actually won the popular vote. And we all, that's been called nutty and crazy. What's more important and more dangerous is that he will be making recommendations on changing the law so that it will become excruciatingly difficult to register to vote, including, for example, he's pushing very hard on this commission for proof of citizenship in order to register. Now, it might sound, by the way, Tom, that might sound, reasonable. You should be an American citizen if you're going to vote. but they don't have proof that we have droves of Mexicans swimming the Rio Grande to vote for Hillary Clinton or anyone else. Not many illegal aliens sign up to vote.
Well, in fact, most of the ones who have been busted have been Europeans who voted for Trump, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't know of actually only 2 convictions for aliens voting in America. Because you go to the can for 5 years, an Austrian voted for Jeb Bush. He admitted to that and got 10 years in prison, which will be followed by deportation. So you don't have millions of people doing this, but you will have hundreds of thousands, and that's no exaggeration, hundreds of thousands of people blocked from registering because they can't prove their citizenship. By the way, your driver's license, aliens get those. Social security card, aliens get those too. You better have a passport or your, ready, original birth certificate. In Kansas, where they took this Jim Crow operation for a test drive, citizenship proof, 14% of all new registrants in the state of Kansas were turned away because they didn't have the right proof of citizenship. That is the original birth certificate or passport. And remember, who has passports? It ain't your homeboys who've just come home from their vacation in the Alps. This is a brilliant and devious and destructive way to cleanse the voter rolls of voters of the wrong color.
And the wrong income status.
Yeah, the incomes. Remember, when we talk about Jim Crow voting, we have to remember that Jim Crow tactics, vote theft, is just class war by other means.
Yep. Yeah, it's go after minorities, go after young people, go after older people, go after poor people, go after people who live in cities who don't drive, and
yeah, well,
I'm of the
Greg,
reality check this for me. I'm of the opinion that if this has been a 30-year campaign. I mean, we've played. You and I have heard it over and over and over again. The clip of what's his name saying, "I don't want everybody to vote. In fact, our leverage goes up as the voting populace goes down."
Yes, from the Heritage Foundation, right?
Yeah, the guy who helped found the Heritage Foundation. What's his name? Paul Wayward. That's right. Yeah.
Wayward.
So I mean, that was in 1980, right? That was during the Reagan campaign. They've been, Rehnquist made his chops in Arizona, standing in the Native American areas and the Hispanic areas, 6'3" guy, challenging voters and scaring the hell out of them, running them off. So this has been a long going thing. But I would assert that without this Jim Crow, without this, and I don't want to minimize Michelle Alexander's version of Jim Crow, by the way, which is the classroom to prison pipeline, and the disproportionate imprisonment of people of color, which is another dimension of it, because then they lose their right to vote in many states. But I would assert that if we had the same voting standards that we had in the 1950s when we had no crisis, that the Republican Party would have virtually no power right now. Do you think I'm right?
Well, except for the Jim Crow states didn't let black folks vote. But yes, if we, before the big change was the elimination of the Voting Rights Act segments.
By the Supreme Court, by John Roberts and friends.
You wouldn't have Trump as president. There's no question whatsoever, because when we're looking at these numbers, the 1.1 million people removed by Crosscheck, for example, and there 200,000 voters could not vote in Wisconsin in this election. Mostly, again, poor voters, voters of color, students. You could use a gun ID, but not your student ID in Wisconsin to vote. And the result was that with 200,000 people blocked, Trump won by about 23,000 votes. So, yeah, you'd have a very, very different electorate. You'd have, by the way, a very different Democratic Party, too, because you'd have a very different primary electorate. What I'm really worried now, by the way, with Kobach, is he said something on Fox News yesterday, which is unbelievably disturbing. He says, now with this federal appointment, I will have access to all the federal records of Homeland Security to hunt for people who are alien voters on our voter rolls. Now, if he does it the way he did Crosscheck, if he finds some guy's been deported who's named Jose Hernandez, Jose Hernandez's nationwide are going to find their votes challenged. This is the big danger. This is what he did with Crosscheck. Now he's moving into the alien voter business after doing the double voter scare. Now it's the alien voter scare. And again, you're right. This is another one brought up by President Trump. That the aliens are swimming the Rio Grande to vote in our elections. But again, they'll prove it. They keep making these claims that we found a match of names. They claim that they use birth dates. They claim that they use social security numbers. They claim that they use middle names. But you know what? They matched, for example, this is a real example, James Edward Brown in one state said he's the same voter as James Thomas Brown in another state. James Brown Jr., James Brown Sr., father, son, supposed to be the same voter. If they're going to now do this type of sophisticated matching with alien voters off the deportation list, look out.
Yeah, and then you combine that with gerrymandering, and here we have a country being run by a small group of right-wing cranks.
Don't forget, the Democrats won the congressional vote. It just lost Congress because of gerrymandering. You know, I mean, I'm not pumping here for rooting for the Democratic Party by any means, but I'm telling you right now that yes, we would not have a GOP Congress right now if you simply count the votes.
Greg, we have 30 seconds left. Why do you think that the American press, particularly the supposedly unbiased press like NPR, don't ever discuss this topic? Why doesn't the Democratic Party ever discuss this topic?
You cannot challenge the myth of the wonder of American democracy.
It's that simple?
You can't challenge the myth. I think that's the core of it. That's the absolute core of it.
Wow.
And also it's a racial issue. And, black news ain't no news.
Yeah.
If they were removing voters at country clubs, believe me, it would be all over National Petroleum Radio.
Oh, I agree. And Joy Reid will talk about it, and we'll see how long her days are numbered at MSNBC. Good point. Good points all. Greg Palast. Greg, thanks a lot. It's always great talking with you. You're the man. GregPalast.com. Thanks, Greg. We'll be back.